Imagine knowing you could do something that no one else could do.
I think we have a window.
Diana Nyad is back.
I know the world wants me to shut my mouth and sit down and wait to die, but I can't.
I want to start with Chai and Jimmy because this is your narrative feature film debut as directors. You're obviously known for your work and in the documentary medium with Free Solo and The Rescue. Had you been looking to make a narrative feature, and what made this the perfect story to start with?
Jimmy and I have always been kind of attracted to these stories about individuals who push the limits of what's possible. It's kind of like this essential human kind of trait. And we had long been thinking about, like, what would that, because our previous films really centered around men, what would that look like in a woman? And when we first read the script for Nyad, we were just like, this is exactly that. And it was also an incredible opportunity to create two very rich roles for two of the best actresses of their generation. But this one was just, most of the events had already transpired. There was a great documentary made by Diana Nyad's nephew called The Other Shore, where you see a lot of the archive in the film.
It's all about story for us. And so when we find a story that we're both passionate about and our interests intersect, that's how we kind of choose the projects that we work on, and this story was that.
Julia, in writing the script, I know you had Diana's book Find a Way. Can you talk about the choice to really focus on, first of all, this beautiful relationship between Diana and Bonnie, and did you have them both as resources as well?
I did, and on top of the thrilling elements and the stranger than fiction details of the adventure, it really was this relationship that got me excited about this project. These two fascinating women who are like opposites and yet peas in a pod, and their beautiful friendship, which is one that has its ins and outs, but is built on unconditional love and understanding of one another. And I couldn't have done it without them as resources, because they're just so lively and so funny and so interesting. Getting on the phone and on Zoom with them in the early days of writing the script, I think I still have like 50 pages of Diana and Bonnie dialogue in some document on my computer where they're like debating Carl Sagan and discussing what to write in a note to a friend whose dog died. Like, they just are so verbal. They know each other in their bones, and it's the kind of characters you dream of finding as a writer. I was familiar with her story. I remembered it, but it was really the producers who I have to thank for bringing me in, because Teddy and Andrew had the rights to her book and had been thinking about this story for a while, and then had gotten these incredible directors. So when I got the submission and it was Chai and Jimmy, I was a fan of their work like everyone else, and it revealed itself to me to be this really interesting character portrait and friendship portrait. So it was an easy yes.
So I do want to talk to the producers, because I understand you were first on board this. When did you first remember, I don't know if you, like me, saw the story on the news and it struck a chord, or maybe you'd been following Diana's career all along, and how did you know, that not only would it make a great story, but to sort of focus on this one chapter of her career?
I loved the book. I mean, I remember when she did The Swim, but it wasn't until I read her memoir that I fell in love with the story, because the book was incredibly well written. And I had a studio deal, and I had to show the book at a first look. And they said, no, we can't do that movie. And I'm like, oh my God, you're crazy. This is the best. So for me, it's about, I love this idea that you should never give up. I just think that that's like, we should all, you don't need to have a big dream like this or a crazy dream like this, but dream big, like dream, or don't let go of your dreams. So for me, it was just about it was obvious, it leapt off the page that it was very cinematic and an incredible, inspiring story.
We had the opportunity to meet Diana, knew the story a little bit, and as you sort of see in the film, Diana is a force. She is unrelenting, she's driven, she's incredibly charismatic and passionate, and her belief in herself really inspires a belief in those around her. We're not doing Chariots of Fire. We are not trying to just glorify a depiction of someone who's done something that frankly deserves glorification, but how do we distill this down to something a little more specific, a little more nuanced. That was in partnership with Julia, in partnership with Chai and Jimmy and what they brought, and then obviously Alexandre and Claudio and the entire team that came together to try and do something that's greater than the whole, which obviously goes without saying wouldn't be possible without Annette Bening and Jodie Foster.
And Alexandra, you've provided music for so many different genres of film. I mean, I just imagine you have your choice of any projects. What specifically drew you to this one?
It was just obvious when I saw the film. It was the direction. I mean, everything is so incredible, photography, and the actors. We've been talking about Annette and Jodie, who are amazing, but Rhys Fans, who's the third of the trio, who brings so much humanity. So, it's rare to be offered a movie where everything seems to be, falling in the right place. And that was it.
We have asked Alexandre to score every single film we've ever made.
Makes sense.
Sorry.
And we use his music as temp for every single movie we've ever made. And this was just a dream come true.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't have imagined the score that Alexandre composed, even after living with this material for so long. But it was like the film found its, partner, its soul in some way. It was really cool, and we feel very lucky.
As you say, the difficult thing is to find the soul of the film. What is the music here for? What can I do to help, to make the film even better or more beautiful or more emotional? And that's where you start. And as the characters were so strong, first of all, of course, Nyad, she's as you say, she's such a force of nature that you have to think about her. How can you give her something else? If the music is too strong, well, you're killing her performance. It's a lot of work, but it's easy when the movie is that perfect.
Mm. Wow.
Can I say that?
Yes.
Perfect?
Please do.
Good.
Claudio, you won an Academy Award for your work on Life of Pi, which is also set largely on water, but very different, obviously. Can you talk about the specific challenges of this film, particularly this stunning underwater photography?
That was a lot of work, man. Just dealing with the water and how we were going to shoot it was all kind of challenges to bring a new way to look at someone swimming, and there's new things in technology that allow us to get really close to the actors versus big giant systems. So I had the idea of just having a system that was sort of simple and easy to use with actors, and I feel like that gets you kind of more in their head. And I think it was really important to get close to Diana as she's swimming, and to really get, and I think that does connect you to the soul of the movie. Figure out the method of how we're going to move the camera, and lighting, and how we're going to deal with lighting, and coming up with the red strip that we saw on some of the documentaries. This is the way we're going to light almost the whole water scene at night. So we just kept it really kind of simple, and I wanted the boat to be really self-contained, and I worked, hard to kind of figure out the coverage of, where Bonnie sits and where Rhys is, so there's like this triangle between the three that, as a story, and when you're shooting it, that we could shoot this and connect the three people on this voyage. Working with Jimmy and Chai was kind of amazing, because you could just bring up ideas, but it was just interesting ways to look at the film, and I try to give as much as I can for a movie that takes a while on swimming, different viewpoints.
Some of this sounds almost experimental.
A little experimental in some things, with water and and just in general with the whole boat and our little, tank that we had.
He did.
He's
we
a better
did
swimmer.
build the SS Miranda, which was this idea that he had early on about how are we going to shoot someone swimming in a different manner, and so it's like a submersible unit that you could put a camera in, so you could see the water line, but you weren't in the water, and we would have it on the tracking with Annette, and there's a couple shots in there that you see, and
that
was
exist
very
before?
experimental. In fact, when we shot it, remember we did the first couple takes, and we were like, oh, it worked.
But I didn't realize this little idea would weigh, 10,000 pounds.
Taiwan built Claudio a tank for for Life of Pi. And the way I described it was like he had a Formula One car, and then with us he had like roller skates. And he has this incredible team, and he runs such a tight ship. And like he was also handed two directors who are like, oh no, we've done everything, the Himalaya, no ropes, caves, and then you have over 30 days of water tank work, which we were not necessarily prepared for initially. And Claudio made sure like we got it. And it was also Annette who had trained so hard for that year that she could stay in the water for hours.
Can we talk a little bit more about this cast, because they're so phenomenal, and you're coming out of the gate with, working with water, doing a period piece, and like, I'm going to say 3 of the best actors ever. Was it ever intimidating or?
On our very first day of filming, and there's, hundreds of people on set, and Jodie Foster's out on a boat like 100 feet away, and we do our first take, and we have to give notes on a megaphone in front of like 400 people to Jodie Foster. That's our first day on set. That was a little intimidating.
But they're all so fantastic. I mean, I can't even imagine. And I think we have someone here with us today you maybe wanted to point out.
We have a very special guest here tonight, the real life Bonnie Stoll. Can you stand up and just wave? And we like to call her Badass Bonnie.
Badass Bonnie.
Badass Bonnie. Here's to Badass Bonnie.
Well, I want to remind everyone that this movie is actually going to be in select theaters next weekend, I believe, October 20th, before premiering on Netflix on November 3rd. It's such a special film. I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for being a great audience.
Thank you. Thank you. It's like a dream come true to be here. So thank you. And thank you to our amazing team.